Welcome to What's Up at Work, the podcast that's all about real talk with the company leaders shaping Northeast Ohio's top workplaces. We're diving into the stories, strategies, and sometimes hilarious moments that come with creating the thriving teams that drive the region's most successful businesses forward. Whether it's a CEO sharing their leadership philosophy or an HR exec spilling their best people-first strategies, we're here to give you insights you can actually use to build a better workplace. Hit play and let's talk about what's really up at work. Welcome back to What's Up at Work. I'm Sam Clyde Schroeder, Vice President of Sales and Marketing at ERC, and today we're talking about what it means to lead with purpose, not just in business, but in the community. My guest today is Kristin Warzocha, President and CEO of the Greater Cleveland Food Bank. Under her leadership, the food bank has grown into Northeast Ohio's largest hunger relief organization, serving hundreds of thousands every year. But they're also building an award-winning workplace where mission-driven work and an incredible employee experience go hand in hand. We're diving into leadership, workplace culture, and what's ahead for food banks in 2025. Kristin, welcome to the show.
Why, thank you. I'm delighted to be here. Thanks for having me, Sam.
Yes, thanks for coming. I'm so excited to talk to you today. You've been at the Greater Cleveland Food Bank for 20 years now?
More than 20 years, 24 years, as a matter of fact. Yes.
What brought you to the organization in the first place?
You know, growing up, I was always volunteering. Now, sometimes I was dragged along by my parents to volunteer. I didn't have a lot of choice in the matter. But by the time I got to college at John Carroll University, I was volunteering on my own. And by senior year, as part of their Project Gold program at the time, I was bringing a group of college students every Saturday morning to make and serve lunch at St. Herman's House of Hospitality, which is essentially a small homeless shelter in Ohio City. And I fell in love with that work. And I knew that I wanted to work in the social service sector and the nonprofit sector in Cleveland. And hunger relief, which was an area where I'd done a lot of volunteer work beyond St. Herman's as well, was just something that I was incredibly passionate about. And ultimately, while the food bank was not my first job out of college, I had some other great jobs. When someone called me about an opening at the food bank, I already knew the place, I already loved the place, and I could not pass up the opportunity.
And what has kept you there for 24 years?
The mission, of course, drives me. It's something that I care about personally. I mean, I just believe that no one in one of the richest countries in the world should go hungry, and they shouldn't have to. But beyond that, it's an organization that is always learning and growing and innovating. And the food bank just attracts wonderful people. That's not only staff, of course, with whom I spend the most time, but volunteers and donors and community leaders. I mean, it is wonderful work, and it is a real privilege.
That's wonderful. Over the course of your career there, can you kind of talk about the different roles that you've had?
Sure. I have not always been the CEO, that's for sure.
You didn't walk right in.
No, nor did I ever think I would be the CEO, as a matter of fact. Mm-hmm. Never occurred to me when I joined the food bank.
Oh my God,
so
really?
When I started at the food bank, 24 years ago, it was a much smaller organization. I started as the director of development. I also was responsible for communications, and my department had 1.5 people in it, and I was one. And then a part-timer who helped me part-time and did some other things in the organization in another department. And, over the years, we've been able, thankfully, to increase and to benefit from growing community support, growing community awareness, and we've been able to have a growing impact. And so, I kind of added things to my areas of responsibility as the organization grew, and I had the wonderful ability to grow with it. So at various times, I've been in charge of our outreach work, our advocacy work, our volunteer services program, kind of all the different ways the community could engage in the food bank. And for the last 10 years, I've had the really wonderful opportunity to serve as CEO.
The food bank does some enormously important work in the community, and I think it's more than people actually realize. For those who don't know, can you give us a quick overview of what the food bank's impact is?
Sure, I'd love to. Yeah. So the food bank was started to serve as the link between members of the food industry with food despair and nonprofit agencies that served the hungry. I would imagine that when I started at the food bank, and I should look back at this someday, I think we distributed something like 10 million pounds of food a year, which, by the way, was a lot of food.
Yeah.
Today, I should say last year, we distributed 54 million pounds of food to a network of 1,000 partner programs in a 6-county service area. And so with just about any hunger relief program you might be familiar with, the majority of the food they distribute comes from the food bank. Now, it's not all donated food from the food industry anymore, although that is still a very important source of food. Today, we also get food from the federal government, the United States Department of Agriculture, who buys surplus commodities to support farmers, but ultimately distributes that food through food banks and school lunch programs. We have a program in a partnership with the state of Ohio where dollars from the state budget are made available to purchase fresh produce, surplus produce from Ohio farmers, distributed by food banks throughout our state. And then we also use donated dollars to do some purchasing. And we are purchasing much more food than we ever did before to try to meet what is very high demand. In addition to groceries that we're kind of shipping out by the caseload and by the truckload in some cases to our partner programs, we also have some wonderful, more unique and custom programs to reach particular audiences. So we have a production kitchen where we make meals for about 100 after-school sites where low-income kids have the opportunity to participate in a healthy meal at the end of the school day. We have special programs for seniors and also special programs with healthcare.
And leading this mission-driven organization, that can probably be rewarding and challenging, would you say? What keeps you motivated every day?
Certainly it's the work, right? Every day when I go to work, I know that we are making a difference. I know that somebody's day is better off because we were there. And every night when I leave, regardless of the time, even if it was a hard day, I still know that we helped someone that day. And I mean, what an amazing feeling that is. And I think it's a feeling that a lot of people who work in the nonprofit sector have at the end of the day, or at least I hope so. We've got a great, very strong nonprofit sector here in Cleveland.
I agree with you. It's incredibly strong. I work at a nonprofit as well, and it's just a wonderful community to be a part of.
You get to help someone every day, right?
Absolutely. That's exactly right. I agree. So beyond what you're doing in the community and all of the impact that you have, the Greater Cleveland Food Bank is also consistently recognized as a great workplace in Northeast Ohio. And your employees love to come to work every day. And I know this because of NorthCoast 99, which is something that my company puts on every year. And you guys have been winners just forever and ever, rightfully so. What do you think makes Greater Cleveland Food Bank a great place to work?
Well, let me say first that really winning the NorthCoast 99 award or getting that recognition, I think for the last 9 years in a row, is truly one of the things that I'm most proud of as the CEO of the food bank. Wow. And I want you to know that, right? I mean, we couldn't do what we do without our enormously talented team. And so for years now, we've been working really hard to try to make sure that our team knows how much their hard work is appreciated, right? Feel that, they're recognized for the hard work that they put in. Because while we are all passionate about the mission, and that is the number one thing that drives us all, we want our folks to have a great work experience. We want to keep great talent. And so that's why we have focused on supporting our team in all of the ways that has gotten us recognized by NorthCoast 99.
Yes, and passion is a huge driver for mission-based work. But there's also a large risk of burnout, would you say? How do you help your team sustain their energy?
Burnout happens. There's no doubt about it. I will tell you, back during the pandemic, we had a whole team full of essential workers. When you run a food distribution center and, the need is skyrocketing as it was during the pandemic for food, that's not work you can do from home. We needed the majority of our team in the office every day. And truthfully, I still to this day think that a lot of folks on our team were just heroes for coming in regardless of, what was happening in the community and frankly, regardless of how scared they were.
Yeah.
And so, we worked really hard and we had a lot of help doing this, just trying to tell and show people, right? how much we loved them. I mean, our board, for example, paid for a food truck one day to come in and provide lunch for all of our staff during the pandemic, right? Yeah. We were, trying to do extra recognition. And those are things we are still continuing to try to do today. We also think a lot about pay at the food bank. And the reason we think so much about pay is because we know that we serve, and our partner agencies serve, hundreds of thousands of people who have someone in their family who is working. A lot of folks are working full-time at a low-paying job, and they're just not able to get by. And we wanted to make sure that the folks on our team weren't working all day at the food bank and standing in line at a food pantry at night. And so over the years, we have gotten to the point where we now pay a minimum of $20 an hour on principal because we want folks to just have at least their basic needs covered. And that makes a big difference.
I want to dig into that a little bit because as a nonprofit, paying above market, it's much harder. How is that something, how are you solving that problem within your organization?
Honestly, we just made it a priority. We said this is something we have to do. And it took time. We made small adjustments a number of years in a row to get to $20 an hour. Again, because we didn't want our folks to have to worry about putting food on the table. And it's still, I'll tell you, if you're a single adult with 2 kids, even $20 an hour, things are going to be difficult, right? But it's better than, the pay they might get for the same job somewhere else. And I think it's really important. We're all human. We all bring our challenges at home to work, whether we want to or not. And so, if someone's really worried about paying that next bill, right, staying in their house, or how they're going to afford, holiday gifts for their kids, that's going to be hanging over their head when they arrive at work in the morning. There's no doubt about it. And it's going to affect their work experience. And so I do think that's been important to our culture and a really important way that we show people how much we care.
Yeah. And you lead a huge workforce of frontline staff, office workers, volunteers. That's a really diverse mix. How do you keep a unified culture going across such a diverse workforce?
It is a diverse mix for sure. Now, we've got about 180 staff people. Wow. We've got 16,000 volunteers a year. Oh. And volunteers hours, the time that they contributed saved us literally millions of dollars last year, as it does every year. And so, I think we try to make sure we're doing as good a job as we can, kind of keeping everybody up to date. A number of years ago, we started doing quarterly all-staff meetings where we actually shut down the operation to bring our whole staff together. And it was hard to do, but we had never successfully been able to get everybody in the same room at the same time to hear the same message. When you've got drivers who are all across Northeast Ohio making deliveries, and you've got folks working in a kitchen who are worried about making enough meals for the next day, and folks who are out doing site visits to our partner agencies, everybody's schedule is different, and it was just hard to get everybody together. And so we finally realized if we wanted to come together as a group to communicate and also to learn things together, the best way to do it was going to be to close for a couple of hours. And so we now do that once a quarter, and it's, I think, made a great difference. In addition to, sharing all the things that every organization shares at a staff meeting, we also always try to do some training opportunity there. So we recently did a Strengths Finder exercise with everyone in the organization. Our drivers did it, our order pickers did it, our kitchen team did it, leadership did it. And then at our all-staff meeting, we were able to get together in small groups and talk about what our strengths were and how we brought them to work and how we might be able to collaborate differently, learning someone else's strengths. And it was a fabulous exercise. And frankly, I think team building opportunity in addition to being your kind of run-of-the-mill all-staff meeting.
Yeah. Okay. Those are so much fun also. I mean, just getting together and looking at okay, I could communicate with you better if I did this. Love that. We just did one too. But also it probably helps with culture, right? Getting everyone in the same room.
Absolutely. Right. And soliciting feedback.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's also very important. We are an organization. I mentioned very early in our discussion that we're always learning and we're always growing and we're always trying new things. And one of the reasons is because we're very committed to our strategic plan. And we religiously do a new strategic plan every 3 years. And for the last couple of plans in particular, we have asked for feedback from every person in the organization.
Wow.
Every single employee has had the opportunity to contribute, to weigh in at some point. Now, not everybody's on the committee. We cannot have a 180-member committee, right? But through surveys or other opportunities or focus groups, they've contributed. And frankly, it has made our strategic planning stronger. The plans that come out of this are better in the end. And I think our whole team has a better appreciation for why we are doing what we're doing, right? What the organizational priorities are.
Have you actually made changes based on feedback you've received from employees?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I can point to things that came up in a strategic planning process that was a contribution by an employee, not on the committee, that we implemented that has been a wild success. I mean, my only regret is that sometimes when we get this feedback, it's anonymous. And so I can't go back to whoever it was who offered this extraordinary nugget of information that I wish I could give credit to.
Yeah, you can't give them kudos, but that's great that they're willing to give the feedback. I mean, good culture starts at the top. And as the leader of the organization, it really falls to you to set that pace. What's one leadership habit that you swear by to keep your team engaged?
To keep our team engaged. Well, so when I think about my strengths, because I just took the Strength Finder again,
okay,
I'm a communicator, right? My background is in communications. I was a communications major in college. And so I think one thing that's just incredibly important is doing everything you can to keep people in the loop. I will tell you that right before I came here, I taped a video for distribution to our entire staff. You know, there are a number of food programs that are at risk right now. Federal food programs, a reduction in funding for our state food program. And a lot of this is getting picked up in the news. It's not just happening in Cleveland, it's happening across the country, right? And so folks want to know what's going on. And so we just started kind of a series of videos that are going out to our whole staff. They can watch them at their convenience, but it's an opportunity to hear an update from me on what we know right now. And in a time of uncertainty, all we can share is what we know, but I think that makes a big difference.
Just hearing from the leader, any sort of communication, when you're anxious like that, nothing helps more. Which leads us to employee well-being, which is where your organization really shines. And I've gotten to know you guys well just culturally because of your performance in this category for NorthCoast 99. So just to clarify for everyone what employee well-being actually means, because it can be a little nebulous. So the definition here is top performers want to work for organizations that support their overall well-being, not just as employees of an organization, but also as individuals. This holistic approach to the well-being of the employee has shifted away from being a fad or an extra perk, but being an essential piece of the puzzle for attracting, engaging, and retaining top-performing employees. What's one policy or practice that's made the biggest difference for employee well-being at Greater Cleveland Food Bank?
Well, I talked about pay, which I think is a huge difference maker for people in their day-to-day lives. But beyond that, we also do some other things, again, to try to recognize and encourage and keep our top performers. So we try to fund together. I think that's really important. If you feel included at work, accepted at work, can make friends at work, you're going to be a happier person all around. We all spend a lot of time at work, right?
Yes.
So we have an annual employee picnic that is absolutely critical to our culture. The entire organization is there. It's every summer. We compete like nobody's business in all sorts of activities. We have a great barbecue lunch, and folks look forward to it all year long. When we moved into our new partner distribution hub 2 years ago now, or just over 2 years ago, it felt like we weren't seeing each other as much. I mean, it's a much larger facility, which we needed to be able to distribute more food, but we weren't on top of each other anymore. My office didn't look out into our warehouse because it was a much larger space and more spread out. And so folks almost immediately noticed that we just didn't feel, as much as we love the space, and it's worked great in terms of being able to distribute more food, we didn't feel as connected. Like, you didn't see people that you used to bump into every day. And so we started doing a happy hour the first Friday of every month.
Fun.
It's at the end of the day. It's known as First Friday. The entire organization is invited when they're done with their workday. And that could be earlier for some folks, depending on their shift, or a little later. And it is, it's supported by different departments who take turns planning it. And there's always a theme. And it gets more and more creative as we go.
Theme?
Oh, yeah.
Ooh.
I mean, people came up with this on their own.
Wow.
It wasn't as creative when it first started. And, it doesn't last long. I mean, an hour and a half. And it's just a nice way to get together in a very informal fashion with folks from other departments that you might not see all the time.
That's great.
Yeah.
What was a good recent theme? I'm
curious now. Theme? There was a basketball theme. It was a March Madness theme.
Fun.
It was a March Madness theme.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it was great. There was trivia about basketball, and there were basketball-shaped cupcakes that someone made and brought. And then we also tried to do other things to support our team in the wellness area.
Yeah, and for leaders who aren't maybe paying as much attention to employee well-being but want to start, where would you tell them to kind of begin? What's a small but meaningful change they could make to kind of get things going?
We have made a lot of progress recently with our benefits program, kind of leaning into benefits in support of our team. And so, our HR team, who's amazing, right, did a lot of research about benefits that leading organizations were offering and the benefits that might be the most helpful to our team. And so everything from increasing paternity leave, and we'd already increased maternity leave, but, it's nice for dad to be off work for a couple of weeks when there's a new baby at home. And, that kind of goes to wanting to be an organization that's really supportive of the whole family. We started a couple of years ago, this program where we actually we were the recipients of a wonderful philanthropic contribution. And we were able to put some of those dollars into an outside fund. It's run by a separate organization. And it is kind of like, it's called Philanthropy, is the name of the organization who kind of keeps this money for us. But if an employee has a crisis, they can apply for a little bit of financial help. It doesn't have to go through HR. They don't need to tell their boss. This third party considers whether or not what they need help with is appropriate, and they could get a contribution. They don't have to pay it back. It's like a grant. And so, we've had employees who struggled with a major health concern who were terrified over, the cost of that health care, who've applied and gotten help. If an employee, is affected by a house fire, some other sort of natural disaster, and there's a whole list of things. And, not everybody wants to share kind of everything happening at home at work. And so while not everything gets approved, right. It has been really helpful to a number of employees. And I'm delighted that we were able to do that.
That's fantastic. What a creative benefit.
Well, we stole the idea from Progressive Insurance. We heard about it from Progressive.
Wow.
They do it for their employees. And we were delighted to have the opportunity to do it as well.
That's a great example of great workplaces looking to each other to continue to get better. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about some of the challenges that you face as a leader and how you have to innovate and kind of get around them, because they're going to be hard things with your job in particular, all the time, right? So one of the big things is that food insecurity is changing and food banks are having to evolve to meet the new needs. What's the biggest challenge keeping you awake at night right now?
Right now. Right now, I think the biggest concern that we have is a reduction in funding or the elimination of public support for hunger relief. So we just learned a couple of weeks ago that this really wonderful federal food program that allowed food banks to buy fresh produce from local farmers has been eliminated. That program provided us with about 1 million pounds of food a year. We also know that there was a decrease in funding for Ohio food programs in the state budget. And while we're still advocating for that, that's a whole process. And we're really hopeful that we can get some of the dollars restored, hopefully to the current level, if not more. Anything that affects our food supply particularly at a time of very high need, is going to be a challenge. And so, we're working really hard right now, not just to continue to engage our elected officials, and we have worked with elected officials for years to try to make sure that they understand how very important these programs are, and many of them do, but also with the community at large. The only way to make up for 1 million pounds less produce a year is to raise dollars. And so that's why the Harvest for Hunger campaign, which is currently underway, is so important. So that's the challenge of the day.
Can you talk a little bit about Harvest for Hunger?
Oh, I'd love to. Love to.
Yeah. What is it? What's it about? What's going on right now?
Yeah. So Harvest for Hunger is one of our nation's largest community-wide food and funds drives. It happens every spring, and it's an opportunity for the entire community to get engaged in hunger relief efforts. It's actually a collaborative effort of 4 food banks serving Northeast Ohio. So we do it in cooperation with Akron-Canton Regional Food Bank, the Second Harvest Food Bank of North Central Ohio, which serves Lorain County and West, and the Second Harvest Food Bank of the Mahoning Valley, which serves the Youngstown area. It means that together 21 counties, our entire media market, have the opportunity to participate. And we have a lot of companies, including some ERC, NorthCoast 99 winners, who host employee food and funds drives to raise dollars for Harvest for Hunger, and frankly have a great time doing it and really use some of the activities as team building opportunities. Those are the campaigns that are often the most successful. We also work with local supermarket partners so that folks, when they go grocery shopping at the grocery store, can tear off a coupon and add $1 or $5 to their bill. All of those little coupons add up over time. And it's truly an extraordinary fundraiser for the food bank and for all the food banks across Northeast Ohio, and help us make more food available. And then we've got some special events like our Market at the Food Bank event, which is coming up at the end of April. And anyone who's interested in learning more, of course, can go to harvestforhunger.org.
Love that. And how long is Harvest for Hunger going on?
It started at the very end of February this year, and it goes through early June. So
great.
3 full months, which gives people a lot of time to get involved.
Yeah, this is a great time for this episode to be coming out, too, because everyone can hear about it and get involved.
It's perfect. And frankly, we really need the support this year.
Yeah, absolutely. That's wonderful. Okay, so Greater Cleveland Food Bank's new Community Resource Center is something else that you guys have been, working hard on over the last couple years. Opened at the end of 2023, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Just over a year.
What inspired that project?
So what was inspired? So an anonymous staff person inspired that project in a strategic plan. Yes.
No way.
Yes.
That's crazy.
Absolutely. Yes. So I think this was a strategic plan probably 5 or 6 years ago. And I still remember we were finalizing our goals. We were asking for feedback. We had all these big butcher paper sheets, large Post-its in the hallway. And people were supposed to give feedback on the various goals. And then there was one that said, what are we forgetting? And some anonymous employee wrote, food bank run food pantry. And that's how the idea was started. And so today we have this wonderful community resource center at our former distribution center on South Waterloo Road. And not only is there a wonderful choice food pantry that actually looks like a small supermarket, where people who are 200% of poverty or below, that means they're eligible for food from the food bank, can shop for the food they need. Now, I use the word shopping loosely because there's not a fee. The food is free, but you can come in, push a shopping cart, and choose the food that you need for your family, which is really special. There's so much dignity in that.
Yes.
And the fact is, everybody has different food preferences, and everybody has different things already in their pantry at home.
Yeah.
And so having the space to do that is a truly beautiful thing. But even beyond that, what we're really excited about is that we have 15 other nonprofit partners located on site who can help address the underlying causes of food insecurity.
Wow. Okay.
Yes. So, we know through our own experiences and through national research that the leading drivers of food insecurity are issues associated with employment. So it could be someone's unemployed, or they're only working part-time, or they're working in a low-wage job, which we talked about.
Yeah.
Issues with housing or medical challenges. And so we recruited partners who are real experts in all of those areas, and they are now on site providing services. So if someone comes in for food, but the challenge they're having is they're unemployed or they're working in a really low-paying job, we may be able to connect them with Ohio Means Jobs or Towards Employment, who can then connect them to maybe a job training program to increase their earning power and help them move into a higher paying job, or simply get them back to work, right?
Wow.
We also have all of these other wonderful nonprofits providing wraparound services. So Shoes and Clothes for Kids, which is just a great organization, I think very well known in our community, moved their entire facility into the Community Resource Center.
Wow.
So now if a family comes in with kids who need school supplies, right, they could have the opportunity to get some help from Shoes and Clothes for Kids. The Diaper Bank moved their operation. The Diaper Bank is a great, great little nonprofit that provides diapers to low-income families. And so, if somebody comes in with a baby who needs diapers and they're also looking for food, they may have the opportunity to get diapers from the Diaper Bank. And it's just a great collaborative environment, a caring environment where people feel loved and respected from the minute they walk in the door. And it's off to an amazing start. We serve 47,000 people in the first year alone.
Wow.
Yeah. Beyond what we ever imagined.
Wow. You're really addressing the whole person too. Why is that important?
Well, in our last strategic plan, we said we really wanted to address hunger today, tomorrow, and for a lifetime. What better than addressing hunger by helping connect someone to a higher paying job so that they don't need emergency food anymore, right?
Yeah.
What better than, connecting someone to a great healthcare partner to help address that health issue so they can be in a better position in the long run. And, the fact is there are so many wonderful and talented nonprofits in Northeast Ohio. And I'm a believer that we can have more impact working together. And it sure makes life easier for someone who is struggling to get the resources they need.
100%. And awareness is so important. And I'm so glad that we're having this conversation. It might be a good time to clear up what's one misconception about food banks that you wish more people understood.
Oh, I think there's a real misperception about who is in need of food. I think before I went to work at the food bank, I worked downtown, right? You will occasionally see someone downtown who is homeless, right? Yeah. Who is panhandling, who is in need of food.
Yeah. And
so I think that because those folks are so visible, when somebody thinks about hunger, a lot of folks think it's the homeless guy that I saw, right, on my way to work. Mm-hmm. The fact is, it's such a small percentage of the people we serve. More than 50% of the people who are being served are children or senior citizens. And the number of senior citizens we serve grows every year. And again, we're serving people who are working but still struggling to make ends meet. And I think that really catches people by surprise as well.
I think every business leader faces challenges, and we've talked about a lot of the challenges that you're currently facing right now and overcoming each one in a unique way. But given the nature of your work, obviously you have to navigate more challenges than most. So what's your best advice for leading through change and uncertainty?
Somebody said recently, and this has really stuck with me, he said, now is not a time for panic, it's a time for hard work. And so I think a lot of us we're trying to stay focused, and we're leading into the work. And frankly, lucky to have the privilege to do so and to make such a big difference for people in our community.
Yes. And for leaders who are looking to get involved, let's talk about some ways that they can do that with the food bank.
Great.
So, all right. Company looking to get involved, what's one impactful way that they can support your organization?
Well, in addition to hosting an employee food and funds drive, you can also bring a group to volunteer. So, we have corporate groups all the time who come down. They might make meals for an after-school meal program. They might make meals for a senior program, sort donated food in our warehouse, or even help people shop at the Community Resource Center. And it takes hundreds of volunteers a day to make the food bank run. And we can take large groups, so easily a group of 20 or even 30. So that is, I think, a great opportunity because not only can you engage your team in the community, but it's a great way to bring people together outside of the office to do something really good and to have an immediate impact. And we have shifts posted on our website. You can literally sign up for a shift on our website.
Okay, so that was my next question. How do we do this logistically? Go to the website, then what?
For anyone who wants to help, whether you want to make a donation, you want to sign up to volunteer and literally book a shift, or even if you want to become an advocate. We need advocates always, but particularly right now, you can sign up to be an advocate on our website as well. So our web address is greaterclevelandfoodbank.org.
Perfect. All right. So now we have made our way to the HR hot seat, which is a segment that we do every time. So I have 10 rapid fire questions for you.
Oh boy. Okay.
We're trying to answer in 3 sentences or less, but if
each one in 3 sentences or less?
Everyone asks me that, yes. 10 questions, 1 word apiece.
Oh boy. I need to go back to my notes.
No, 3 sentences apiece. If you need more, That's okay.
Okay.
All right. Ready?
No, but go ahead.
All right. If we walked into your office right now, what's the weirdest thing we would see?
A pair of roller skates?
No way.
Yeah,
Why?
really? Because this wonderful, wonderful mentor of mine, when we opened the new facility was so big, he said, you're going to need to wear roller skates to get around. I just thought, and he sent me the most lovely note, and I loved that. So I have a pair of roller skates. Now, HR immediately said, absolutely not. You're so clumsy. Don't you dare wear those roller skates. And I have not. I think they're right. I have not rolled down the hall in them yet. But
oh no, what a disaster that would be.
Yeah, it would be. So it's just such a kind and thoughtful.
What a sweet gift.
I love it.
That's really, really thoughtful. All right, what's your go-to snack for powering through the day?
Snickers. End of the day, without a doubt. Snickers really satisfies. We have them in the vending machine in the lobby.
Snickers really.
Yep, it's my guilty. No secret anymore.
What's one thing you do every day that keeps you grounded at work?
I meditate.
Really?
Every single morning. I started during the pandemic. I'm convinced it's what got me through the pandemic. Yeah. I have the Calm app. We actually now every employee at the food bank has the opportunity to use the Calm app, and I meditate every morning first thing when I wake up.
That is such a cool benefit.
Yeah.
Do employees engage?
They do. They do. You can use it to meditate. You can also use it to fall asleep at night. And so for anyone who's having a hard time sleeping, there's a sleep story for you.
Wow. Okay.
It's a great thing. You might want to try it.
All right. If you could swap jobs with anyone at the Greater Cleveland Food Bank, who would it be and why?
That's a great question. Honestly, I feel like it depends on the day.
Okay.
My predecessor used to say she wanted to swap jobs with a receptionist, and now I understand why. You get to see all these wonderful people walking in the door to help us, right? Get to answer all the questions and stay in touch with everyone, but not make as many of the decisions that I'm making right now.
Yeah. You really do get to interact with everyone.
Yeah. I love it.
Oh, that's
we actually have a really wonderful person who works our front desk along with volunteers. But
yeah, I'm sure. That's a big job.
Yeah. Yeah, it's important.
Absolutely. All right. What's a workplace habit you picked up early in your career that you still have today?
I learned something from my predecessor, Ann Goodman, and it was a quote from her former boss, who always said, the harder you work, the luckier you get. And that has always stuck with me.
That's a good mantra.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. What's your hype song before a big meeting or presentation? What do you listen to get pumped up?
Oh my gosh, what do I listen to get pumped up? I don't have one particular hype song. I'm sorry. God, I don't have one particular hype song. I don't have an answer for this.
We can circle back to this one.
Yeah.
Think songs that you listened to recently as we're going through the rest of these questions.
Yeah, I'm a public radio listener.
You know what? That's
I get it. I'm listening to the news all the time in the car. That's almost all.
You can get hyped to NPR. I love that.
It's not quite the same. I get it.
No, it's whatever motivates you. I'm in. If you had to describe your job in 3 words, what would they be?
Food is love.
Right off the cuff. That's awesome. All right, what's an unusual but effective productivity hack that you swear by?
Oh, I have this planner that I love. I absolutely love my planner. I'm looking for it over there. It is an old school written planner where I do my top 3 must get done todays every day. Because, you could have 68 things that need to get done every 100%. Day, and it gets overwhelming. So the first thing I do every morning is the top 3 cannot leave until these 3 things are done or they've progressed.
That's a great system.
And it has been a really good tool for me.
Are you a handwriter?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Retention
I like my
is
notes.
Better. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep. I like having handwritten notes.
All right. If you had to pick one emoji to sum up your workday, which one would it be?
I hope it would be a big smile.
That's good. Clean, simple, classic. All right. What's one small act of kindness in the workplace that can have a big impact? This is the last one.
I think just the little things we can do to recognize each other and to tell folks that we appreciate them. I try to write one handwritten thank you note every day.
Really? That's pretty cool.
This is new for me this year. But so far, so good. And it makes me feel good.
Was that a resolution or did you?
It was one of the things I decided I wanted to start doing.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So we're into March. End of March. I'm doing pretty well.
Keeping up.
Yeah.
All right. I love this. Kristin, this has been a great conversation. Before we wrap up, what's one lesson from the Greater Cleveland Food Bank's workplace culture that any leader, no matter the industry, no matter for-profit, nonprofit, what can they learn?
Just love on your people. We couldn't do what we do without our extraordinarily talented team.
Yeah.
Right? They work so hard. They care so much. I try not to ever lose sight of that. And thankfully, we've got a whole HR team and senior leadership team and board of directors who feels that way too.
And if a leader's listening today and says, wow, I want to make my workplace better, what's one tangible thing they can do today to start?
Well, they can get more involved with ERC. They can apply for NorthCoast. They can apply for NorthCoast 99 and learn what other organizations are doing. Or they can schedule a time to volunteer at the food bank.
I love that. Plug for both. No, but for real. I mean, it's part of working at a nonprofit is you're helping someone every day.
Yeah.
So it is legitimate. It's very legitimate help that we're offering. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
All right, Kristin, that's it for What's Up at Work today. I so appreciate you joining us on the show. And huge thanks to Kristin Warzocha here for sharing her insights and the incredible work of the Greater Cleveland Food Bank. If you enjoyed this conversation, subscribe, leave a review, and follow along as we keep exploring what makes great workplaces thrive. Till next time, keep leading, keep learning, and stay curious about what's up at work. We hope you enjoyed this episode of What's Up at Work. Now it's time to get out there and start building better workplaces. If you need help with where to start, ERC has your back. Head to yourerc.com for exclusive HR tools, insights, and resources to help you attract and retain top talent. And keep tuning into What's Up at Work for more strategies and secrets to help leaders like you create thriving workplaces. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.